Welcome back, everybody. Today we talk about Cyberpunk 2. Yes, the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 is officially happening. We already knew that, but now it's official, and we've got new news, leaks, rumors, confirmation, and some theories that get pretty wild. Here's a spoiler. We might actually be leaving Night City for a new city that makes Night City look tame. And there's a secret clue hidden in Cyberpunk 2077 that hints at when and where that could happen. So stick around for that in the video. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos. We're going to start with what we know for sure. The official announcement and the title confirmed. We don't have to call this Projekt Orion or anything like that anymore. Drop a like, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications, and CD Projekt Red has officially confirmed the sequel is in the works. We already knew that, but now we really know that, and they're actually calling it Cyberpunk 2, at least for now. Now, this isn't just a fan nickname. The studio used Cyberpunk 2 by name in a press release and investor call. They dropped the old codename Projekt Orion. It's gone. According to IGN and CDPR's latest financial report, the game completed its conceptual phase and has now entered pre-production. That means the team has nailed down the broad vision and they are starting to prototype and plan in detail. This is where things start to get interesting. Now, Cyberpunk 2, it's still probably a working title. CDPR noted that doesn't necessarily mean the final game will literally be called Cyberpunk 2. After all, the first game was Cyberpunk 2077, not 1. They're likely keeping the real name under wraps because revealing the subtitle or the year could give away the setting or the timeline. So for now, it's just nice to have official confirmation that the sequel is real and it's underway. It's also worth noting here, it's extremely early. No trailer, no screenshots, nothing yet, just the knowledge that it does exist. CDPR is playing this one close to the vest after the hype and lessons of the first game's launch, if anybody remembers, but at least we have a sequel confirmed and everybody can start getting excited. Now let's talk about the development team and the engine changes. Who's actually making Cyberpunk 2? CD Projekt Red has reorganized and brought in new talent to steer this sequel. They established a new development hub in North America, Boston, specifically to work on Cyberpunk 2. In fact, many Cyberpunk 2077 veterans moved to Boston to join this studio. It's now called CDPR North America, so they can develop Cyberpunk 2 in parallel with the Poland's team's other projects, like the next Witcher, which we'll probably do a video on pretty soon. Let's talk about some of these key team members. This is important. Gabriel Amatangelo, as game director, he took over directing Cyberpunk's post-launch, and he led the acclaimed Phantom Liberty expansion. He knows Night City very well, and he's now heading up the entire sequel project. Then we have Paul Sasko as Associate Game Director, the lead quest designer from CP27. You might know him from his developer streams. And he's continuing on the sequel's core team. And then last is Igor Sarinsky. I hope I said that right. Creative Director, and Andrzej Stopa. They are going to be with the game, and they're veterans from the first game and Phantom Liberty. Now, on top of the returning crew, CDPR hired some high-profile new talent to boost the project. For example, Anna Miguel has come aboard as lead writer. We know how important a writer is. She's known for her narrative work on Control, Dishonored: Death of the Outsider, and the upcoming Fable, which I don't know if we're ever going to get. They also picked Alexander Freed, a former BioWare lead writer who worked on Star Wars: The Old Republic, that's a win, to help with the story. Those are huge. Experienced people from studios like Ubisoft, Blizzard, WB Games have joined producers and directors. In short, CDPR is stacked. They have stacked their deck with veterans to make sure that this sequel avoids the missteps of the first game's development. Now, one huge change since the first Cyberpunk is the engine. CDPR confirmed the sequel will be built on the Unreal Engine 5, not the proprietary RED engine used for 2077. This is the same engine their new Witcher games are using, and it should, I say should, allow for more stability and easier development tools. If you recall, the first Cyberpunk's engine was powerful, but it caused a lot of headaches and bugs. So by switching to Unreal Engine 5, those devs can tap into all the cutting-edge tech, the graphics and physics demos that we've seen, and hopefully get a smoother development process. Now let's get into the good stuff that we always like to talk about here and kind of banter back and forth in the comment section. And yes, I read every single comment on every single video. If I've read your comment and I hearted it, well, you know I read it. Now, let's dive into, we'll say rumors and leaks. Official info is scarce right now, but we do have some hints thanks to interviews and inside chatter. The biggest leak, if you can call it that, came from Mike Pondsmith, the creator of the original Cyberpunk tabletop RPG. In a recent interview, Pondsmith let it slip that Cyberpunk 2 will take us beyond Night City to another major city in the Cyberpunk universe. He mentioned Well, he mentioned that during a visit to CDPR that he spoke with the environment artist who told him there's another city we visit in the game. Now, Pondsmith didn't name it outright. He joked, I'm not telling you any more than that, but he described the vibe, saying this new location isn't like Blade Runner's LA. It feels more like Chicago gone wrong. Chicago. This comment set the community just on a tangent. If you think about it, Night City in 2077 had that West Coast neon noir feel. Chicago, or a fictional city inspired by it, that could bring a whole new atmosphere. Probably grittier, more visceral, dark, more industrial Midwest vibe. But Cyberpunk to the core, I mean, that could be pretty crazy. He also reassured that Night City is still in the game, but the sequel is not limited to it. So we might be globetrotting here, at least cross-countrying in the sequel, which to me is pretty exciting. Imagine the story moving between cities. That could be a larger scope, more variety in the environments. Now, in terms of gameplay, one rumor is that Cyberpunk 2 could incorporate multiplayer elements, something 2077 lacked. CDPR's joint CEO, Michael, said they are considering adding multiplayer to Cyberpunk sequel in some form. They haven't decided what that looks like yet. Co-op missions, maybe online mode, I don't know. But they did state in interviews, future projects will likely include multiplayer components. I mean, don't worry. They've also promised not to detract from their bread and butter single-player storytelling, which is why we're all buying this game. It's more like an added layer. You might be able to explore the Cyberpunk world with friends or encounter other players if it pans out. It's a big change, I know. We'll have to see how that one goes. We also have hints that the devs are cooking up new features and improvements based on feedback from you guys. Pondsmith mentioned he saw some new cyberware concepts during his studio visit, and he gave feedback on them. Now, this suggests we're going to get even crazier augmentations to play with, possibly things that did not make it in the first game. You guys remember how wall running was in early demos, and then it was gone? Or how we wanted more cybernetic abilities? I mean, it's all speculation, but hearing new cyberware, well, that being discussed is probably a good sign. Now, the hidden clues. I talked about the hidden clues. The Cyberpunk community has been hard at work, always hunting for clues about Cyberpunk 2, and amazingly, it looks like CDPR may have teased a sequel setting and year way back in 2077's release without any of us realizing it. Players on Reddit and Reset Era noticed in-game advertisements and lore shards that point towards Chicago and the year 2080. In Cyberpunk 2077, there are some blink and you miss it ads that mention Chicago. One ad in particular has the slogan, "Travel from Chicago to Night City in under 3 hours, coming in 2080. Let that sink in. 2080. Cyberpunk 2077 obviously takes place in 2077, so why would there be an in-game ad hyping things up happening in 2080? A lot of fans think it's a secret teaser for the sequel setting and timeframe. It suggests that 2080, by then, there will be high-speed transport connecting Night City and Chicago. And maybe that's exactly when Cyberpunk 2 takes place. But there's more, okay? In the game's lore, a data shard mentions a prediction that another hot corporate war could break out in 2080. So if you know Cyberpunk's lore, the fourth corporate war, I mean, it shaped a lot of the world's backstory. Fans theorize that a new war around 2080 could be the conflict backdrop to the sequel. So how cool would it be, and terrifying, if it means the world of Cyberpunk 2 is on the brink of massive upheaval, perhaps for an ambitious story here? One Redditor joked that 2080 might actually be the game's release date, not just the setting. I know, haha. But others pointed out that the timeline lines up nicely. Phantom Liberty's expansion, well, it reaches into 2079, so a 3-year time jump? That's plausible. And maybe the name's going to be Cyberpunk 2080, and who knows? And then Pondsmith comments about Chicago-like city? I mean, come on, that's validating years of fan theories that Chicago or a similar city was the next location. Like I said, CDPR hasn't confirmed any year or subtitle, but that would be pretty fitting. If the first game is 2077 and the next is 2080, if we come back to this video and it's right, that's going to be pretty cool. Now, beyond location and year, fans on forums are speculating about the story and the characters. One big question is, will Johnny return? Well, with multiple endings in 2077, it's hard to have a single canon outcome here. The safest bet is the sequel features a new protagonist in a new city with maybe some references or Easter eggs about V's legendary exploits. I don't know. I mean, there's precedent. The Witcher games followed one canon path from the books in previous games, so CDPR could declare one ending canon, but that might upset players who chose differently, so fresh starts, they make sense. We might still see familiar faces. Who knows? Maybe Misty or Judy could cameo, or at least get a nod. If the timeline is just a few years later, and if Johnny's construct was somehow preserved, you never know. And you know they're going to. Come on. Now, in terms of gameplay, community wish list, which quickly turned into fan theories, but let's go with them. They dream of features that were missing in 2077. Interactive flying cars. A lot of us would like to hop in a hover car or AV and soar over the skyline. Better AI for crowds and police. That's a common demand. Modding community improved that in 2077 themselves, so fans theorize the devs could officially amp it up in the sequel. Some even speculate about multiple playable locations, so if Night City and Chicago both appear, maybe you travel them via the 3-hour maglev or something. Who knows? It would be pretty cool. I mean, it's wishful thinking, but yeah. Now, let's summarize up here. Many point towards Cyberpunk 2 taking place in 2080 in a Chicago-inspired city, possibly during a brewing corporate war. If that ends up being true, I think we're in good hands here. Now, when are we going to get this in our hands? When could Cyberpunk 2 actually release? Well, since the game is only in pre-production as of right now, don't expect to be getting it anytime soon. Projekt Red's execs have been open about the timeline. They say on average, it takes 4 to 5 years to go from pre-production to final release for their big games. And they emphasized each project is unique. So it's not a guarantee, but that's the ballpark. If we start the clock right now, that puts Cyberpunk 2 likely in 2029 or 2030 at the earliest. That hurts to say that. I mean, in fact, during an investor Q&A, CDPR was asked to compare it to the next Witcher schedule. Witcher 4 entered pre-production in 2022. It's targeted for 2027. That's a 5-year span. Makes sense. I mean, now 2030 might feel like a long way, but remember, CDPR has multiple teams. They don't want to rush another launch. Might get teasers next year, the year after, but it's going to be a little while. So there you have it, my friends. Cyberpunk 2 is officially in development and being called Cyberpunk 2. Well, it's in pre-production right now. And we have hints that really point toward a dystopian Chicago. I kind of hope it's true. I'm going to guess it now. Cyberpunk 2080 will be the name. You guys let me know what you think. Like I said, I read every single comment, and I'll see you soon.